Tobago updates.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, viewers. We've got a lot to talk about this morning. I've got a man that's been in the highlights quite a bit lately in our space, and that is the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Mr. Trevor James, who is here to speak with us about some of his plans that were mentioned in the budget and some other things within the space. So good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kandace. Thank you, Channel Tobago Updates. It's good to be here. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad. Good morning, world.
All right. So now, viewers, I don't know if you paid attention at all to the town hall meeting in the electoral district of Scarborough Mount Brace last night. But Mr. James, you got a lot of praise.
Well, I work for the people. That's why I was elected, and I will continue to do that job. Despite the criticisms that we face, many secretaries like myself and representatives like myself are in fact working for our districts, and that will continue to happen.
And it certainly showed, because quite a number of residents came forward to thank you for your service and to encourage you, as well as the Chief Secretary. But moving on, one of the things that you mentioned last night, and I want to start off our conversation speaking of that, is that of the plan for the Redeveloped Scarborough. That is your one of your big campaign promises, and we had that presentation that happened about a year ago where you had this massive port plan and so many things, so many good things for Scarborough. And so we just had the feasibility study done. So I want you to just to sort of speak from that point as to where the project is in terms of the feasibility study and the immediate plans for the next few months in regards to it.
As you know, Kandace, we ran heavily on the redevelopment of Scarborough as a means of creating a fillip in the Tobago economy, of building out the infrastructural independence that Tobago needs to blossom. The project is needed sorely in Tobago. As we speak today, we have in our hands the feasibility report, comprehensive feasibility study, which happened consequent to the first round of consultations, where the team came together, led by a Tobago architect, a young man from my district as well, apparently. And the report is in. Based on the feasibility, we now have a changed concept design. They have moved two of the berths east of the current port location because of issues with current flow and the reef and the channel and all of that. And so we're going to roll that out shortly. The on-land aspects of the project as well, they have done new road infrastructure works, made plans for a new hotel in Scarborough, So they made some changes based on the information from the feasibility. And we hope to roll that out, have a new round of consultations. And in support of all of that, the division went out to the public with the Tobago Capital Investment Portfolio tender, which closed last week, Thursday, I believe. Out of that, I think we charged $5,000, first time the THA has ever charged for a tender package. $5,000, I think 10 persons purchased, 8 persons actually submitted. And in there, I am told that there are persons who submitted to build, design, and finance the whole Scarborough master plan. So exciting times are just around the corner. Mm-hmm. And we look on at the fact that the EMA has begun considering an application to extend the jetty, a space submitted by a company in Trinidad, a space that is clearly the responsibility of the THA. And we are concerned in Tobago, and I think all Tobagonians should be concerned. We are concerned in the THA. All Tobagonians should be concerned that we have an authority clearly that has been weaponized against the THA, considering an application for a project in the port of Scarborough, a parcel of Tobago that belongs administrative control to the THA, that does not come from the THA. It is tantamount to somebody looking at your piece of land, Kandace, and sending to Town Country Planning a house drawn on your land, and Town Country considering giving approval to that person to build on your land. That is what has happened in the space so far. But we would press ahead. We will look at the possible stumbling blocks that could be put in our way from the central government. No doubt they will try, and we will always tell our story to the people. But all in all, the project is moving along nicely. We had the executive council approve the formation of a company to manage this whole project for us. That has been approved, and we're now looking at building out that company, putting a new board, getting a CEO to take over from the division this whole development of Scarborough. So that's on the way, and hopefully soon we will have good news to report.
And how long how long would this project go on for? Because naturally, this is a massive undertaking, so it's not something that would happen overnight.
No, absolutely. We will look at the proposals that we have to see the type of phasing that is required. No doubt we can't build the whole master plan at the same time. So we'll look at how we schedule this thing and what's the appetite of the investor, what kind of payback we would need to what kind of model, financial model we will need in order to ensure that we are not putting the finances of Tobago at jeopardy. But these are not things that are beyond us, and we expect. I am hoping that by January next year we would see some reclamation taking place.
Certainly. And now, one of the things you also mentioned in the budget is that, you all are going forward that with the rehabilitation of the botanical gardens and some other small projects like that within the space until we can start to make the bigger changes happen in Scarborough. So can you give me a little bit of, the ideas you have for the botanical gardens and what other little things that you are going to be doing in Scarborough in the short term?
Well, last year we went out with a request for proposals to put those lines on the ground, as you know.
Yes.
We decided to delay that a bit to see what the designers would come up with, because we didn't want to put cables on the ground and it be in the way of a planned development. And so we decided to step back and wait to see the type of road infrastructure design that the designers will come up with, what the traffic flow situation would be. So we could make sure that we are planning 50 years and the city of Scarborough works properly. But alongside that, we have identified some roadways. The one that we've started with in Scarborough from Smithfield was one of them. We are still looking at the possibility of going down Dodge Fort straight over to Gardenside. And we have in discussions. The department has already had discussions with Mr. Phillips about whether we can acquire part of that property that he has on the corner there to widen that road so we can go straight over. We've had a lot of complaints from persons who now believe that they should be able to drive from Bishops all the way uptown without going to the to the main road or to the Claude Noel. So we're looking at that. The team looking at the numbers in terms of traffic projection to see what infrastructure we need. There are also other possibilities in terms of road infrastructure. I think on the design, there is a design to connect that bypass by Gardenside Car Park to come straight over onto Wilson Road to create another block. So there are those things that we will look at in the short term. In terms of botanic gardens, the Division of Food Security, I think, has secured some funds to assist with the redevelopment and rehabilitation of botanic gardens, not the largest of sums. And I think they are waiting on our designs to see how they can roll out an upgrade for botanic gardens, and that will be coming shortly as well.
Okay, great. Now, moving on from the plan for Scarborough, another major infrastructural entity within our space is that of SPEL, the Study Park Enterprise Limited. And you mentioned in the budget some things that you met upon taking office. For instance, the operating costs were about $900,000 a month. 95% of the equipment was down. The maintenance cost for the equipment was about $600,000 per month. I want you to speak about, what work has been done to deal with those challenges and those high costs that of operating that is there at the Study Park Quarry. Well, at Spell, sorry.
Yeah, the study part. No, Candice, Spell is a complicated company. What we are trying to do, Tobago and the governments before us have been trying to do, is to not privatize Spell completely before. They took that bold step in 2017 because, the public sector management was not proven to be the best means of managing a company such as Spell. From 2017 to now, we've tried to look at the performance of Spell when we came in to see, what was working, what is working, and what we could keep, what we could actually change. That has taken us the first board to do that kind of work, and I think we are now at a place where we have the data where we can plan. What we inherited are two aging plants, both of them more than a decade old, with issues, with severe maintenance issues, where suppliers for parts have been owed significant sums and unwilling to take purchase orders from Spell. And so we had to find a way of treating with that kind of debt and bringing that down and find a way to have a more seamless procurement. More or less that we are at that place. And so we are now looking at what is the best decision to take given the development we want to see in Tobago. And the production of aggregate will become critical and more critical for us. And so that analysis continues. We have a new general manager now who was there before and who has significant experience. And they have been mandated to submit a report as to how they're going to move Spell out of debt and into production. And we are hopefully going to get that report at the end of July. And from that, we will make decisions at the executive level of where we go, whether we acquire new plants, whether we bring in a new fleet of mobile equipment. And our goal is to improve production at the lowest cost. And so once that report comes in, we will come back to the people and say, listen, this is the investment we need to make, and this is the return we expect to get after that investment. In terms of what we met at Spell, there's so many issues. We had preferential treatment for a couple of vendors, couple of suppliers, couple of purchasers, that seemed to be that the people of Tobago was subsidizing. It's too much things to focus on. I want today to be as positive as I can.
What was the level of debt that you met?
Well, Spell had a couple loans, but it is not so much debt. It is operating cost.
Okay, understand.
And we need to bring that down. We need to look at the staffing arrangements and the structure of the staffing and make sure that the managers are covering the right areas and reported on the right things every month so we can track and create the trend lines to see where we actually are going. But no doubt this new board, this new general manager will be on course. That's their mandate. And we are hoping for good things to come in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the vision at this point in time for Spell? Is there any vision there, or are you still trying to decide which direction we should take the company?
No, absolutely. There are three things that Spell needs to do. Spell needs to supply the Tobago market with all the aggregate that Tobago will consume for asphalt, for concrete, and for road development. Can Spell do that? Absolutely. Spell has the opportunity to supply the Trinidad market. And can Spell do that? Absolutely. Spell has the opportunity to export to Guyana and St. Vincent and wherever else in the Caribbean. They have done some of that. Can they continue? Absolutely. There are challenges with the licensing regime and the schedule items and all of that. But we see no reason why it can't be that the THA awards its own license for mining in Tobago. We don't see the need for us to have to go to a Ministry of Energy to get a license. We have to fight up every time to go to the commissioner of police to get a blasting license. And these are things that are best managed at the local level. And so, we will continue to push for those kind of changes to be made, because we can't continue to be as inefficient as we have been. And, so we will continue to make the right noises. Behind the scenes, we will be writing the right letters, and we'll be pushing legislatively as well. But Tobago has to come together to understand that the majority of the problems that we face in Tobago are, in fact, as a result of us not being as autonomous as we should be. Almost every problem we face is because of that single fact. And it is beyond me why somebody in Parliament will sit down year after year, decade after decade, and not realize there is no profit to a ministry in Trinidad prescribing something for people in Tobago who vote for people in Tobago. What is the need for that? It is that colonial desire to control and dominate another human being that continues to fester and create this disharmony. The people of Tobago need to stand up together once and for all and say, listen, autonomy is what we need if we are going to move this place forward. And we have to demand it in unison. We can argue after about who is to run this Tobago that we want. We can argue about that after. But together, we have to decide that all of Tobago must be managed by people in Tobago for the betterment of Tobago. And if we can do that, finally, we'll see a better Tobago.
All right. Well, we got to stick a pin right there, Mr. James, because we got to take a quick break. But when we come back, we will continue the conversation with Mr. Trevor James as we speak about what's to happen in the space of infrastructure, quarries, and urban development. We'll be right back.
I say, thanks a favor to wake up and hear me.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Update. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations with the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Mr. Trevor James. Now, during his budget presentation, Mr. James made mention of something that we all face every day on our roads, and that is our pothole situation here in Tobago, which he said that 95% is caused by WASA. And so far, his division has spent $5.24 million in repairing those potholes that were caused by WASA. Mr. James, you also made mention of the problems with WASA in terms of negotiations to make sure that the roads can be repaired in a reasonable time that and would not cost the THA as much money.
Well, first let me say that the men and women who work at WASA Tobago, this is not a criticism of them or their ability to manage WASA. The reality, however, is that WASA, although a fifth schedule item, public utilities, that is a fifth schedule item, is still being managed from Port of Spain. Ask me why that is after 27 years. It's another discussion altogether. The pipeline infrastructure in Tobago, clearly an aging pipeline. WASA comes and digs up a spot today, fixes that, and 10 meters away it will rupture again. And we see that along many parts in Tobago where that has happened. The issue that I have is that WASA is responsible for repairing the damage they cause. Over the years, they have had several MOUs with past THA where they had a capital contribution to those repairs. We came into office cognizant of that fact, and we sat with the management of WASA and the Secretary with responsibility for public utilities in Tobago, and we had two meetings geared towards coming up with an MOU where the Division of Infrastructure and WASA can work together, so that we can be alerted as to when WASA is going to a particular area. We can put a plan in place so we can repair the area. WASA, because WASA is in some areas excavating down 6, 7, 10 feet in some areas, we have to build up that area and compact it in a particular way so that we get the surface at the top that doesn't compress under load. What we've been having is that when WASA comes, WASA does the road infrastructure at the bottom, the sub basis of the road, and we come and we do the top. That has not proven to be the best methodology. And you look, when the roads get patched, the roads still sink after a while because the road has not been built up and compacted to the right proctor density before we actually put in a wearing course on it. And so we had all of those discussions, and the MOU is with WASA for a year, and we still can't get it back, so we can have a real negotiation as to where we will go. Now, is that right? Is that fair? Certainly it is not. And I think, again, this may be an area where the government is saying, listen, if we can pressure them, then we can win some votes or something. But the people of Tobago, the motorists of Tobago, are suffering because we have a severe budgetary constraint. We go to the House and we request last budget $3.7 billion, and we get 2 point something. And so a lot of issues that we intend to correct can't be corrected because the government, on the one hand, reduces our budget, on the next hand, refuses to sign an MOU with us, remits no money for the damage that they create, and people on Facebook and so on, and your people in the media complain bitterly that the Division of Infrastructure don't seem to be able to keep up with all these patches that are required. Well, you look around, you drive around Tobago, and you see for yourself that the majority of these holes are by WASA. We've been waiting in John Dial for 6 months to repair that road, and we can't. We've just started the repair again, bring it to the place where we're just waiting for the wearing course to be put on, and the pipeline rupture again. And that is where we are. And try as we might, WASA refuses to want to contribute to this damage that their lines are causing.
And then what about in terms of those roads? I mean, and one of them that comes to mind is All Fields Road. That was, one of those that are under investigation, I should say. When can we see relief? Because, there are some people that said, even though we know what's going on in terms of those audits, I mean, there needs to be some sort of temporary relief for those roads that are serious issues.
That's not as a result of the audit. We took a decision. Although the road was one of the roads mentioned, we took a decision to repair that road. That's a contract, I think, awarded to Warner's Construction that they left. And we took a decision to repair the road. When we got to Toby's Drive, I think, WASA had a major leak there as well. And we had to wait for WASA to come to finish that piece from Toby, I think, down to Hampden. And so we had to move the staff away to another area. When we move, we don't have unlimited resources. When we move, it's difficult to come back in a timely manner. We have people in Mount Hay. They've been calling on my phone and I passed the road in a terrible state. People from Lake Ito, Mason Hall. I mean, that road is so terrible that it's almost undrivable. And these are all inherited stuff. We don't have, unfortunately, unlimited resources that we could send teams all over the country at the same time. So we're asking for a little patience. We have a plan in place, and we would move around. We've requested subventions from the ministry, from the Division of Finance, to acquire new equipment, to be able to bolster the patching and paving gangs and so on. They can't seem to find a way to do that yet. And so we're working in a rent and lease limited equipment at the division. From years, we've had no new equipment that works for more than a decade. And so the public has to become a little more patient. I know we came in on a big high, and we've started out well in that first year. We've patched out, most of Tobago.
We had a launch of the Smart app.
We launched Smart, so there's an increased expectation of a more timely rectification of these issues, and we are on course. We are happy that people believe that we can fix this thing and have confidence that we can do it, but we're just asking for a little more patience as we try to fix everybody in this first term, because certainly we can't do it in the first year.
And as I mentioned, the Smart App, what is the updates on that? How has that been working, or and to making sure that we can bring relief as soon as possible to some of these issues on our roads?
Smart Up, again, one of the major deliverables of the division in the first year. Wonderful in initiative. We've been swamped, obviously, with all the issues around the island that we've had to contend with. Putting the back-end resources in place, the staff, the equipment rollout, to respond in a timely manner has been a challenge. And we hope that, by next year, we will get all of that sorted out and working right. There is a need for major investment in equipment, both minor and major equipment, in order for the full benefit of the app to be realized. And we are hopeful that next financial, we will be able to correct the issues that we've seen and get Smart working the way we intended it to work. But no doubt a great initiative for the people of Tobago.
Now, the procurement legislation has been passed and it is being implemented throughout all government agencies, the THA, etc. How, in light of all those issues or the criticisms that you received in the past year or so regarding the issuance of contracts and so on, how will the implementation of the Procurement Act deal or change the way that the division handles contracts to contractors?
Let me just go back. We came into office, and the data we have suggests that from the Division of Infrastructure, there was not probably one project that was procured through the procurement unit at the division. Not one. All those projects seem to be procured through one officer and an administrator. 90+% of them without any tender process. Through some bonded contract craziness that somebody came up with, where they assign contractors work subjectively through the office of some junior officer at the division. We have moved from that to creating a full procurement unit under a new procurement manager, and we are tendering every project. We've had no project that was tendered through a sole select procurement methodology. So we have transformed the procurement process for project procurement at the division in maybe 2 or 3 months. And the people on the other side who still want to criticize. The kind of hypocrisy across Tobago is so mind-blowing sometimes that you wonder where people live. Now, in terms of the procurement legislation being in place, we are at a difficult place at the division, and I think at the THA, and maybe at the ministries in Trinidad as well, where no procuring agent of the state was ready for this to happen. And public servants, government officials are still wondering why this was proclaimed without giving time for procuring agents to get their house in order. Up to today, I think the Division of Infrastructure may be the most advanced in the THA in how we are moving, because we've had a procurement manager from day one. No other division has a procurement manager today. In the THA, people in Trinidad are now moving to that. And so we've attempted as a procurement agent to register with the OPR. We are at the stage now at the division where we still have to complete that process so that we could go on the OPR website to see who are the entities that have actually registered with the OPR. There's no procuring agent in Tobago that can say to anybody that they have gone to the OPR website and they can say that Kandace Jackson and Company is a registered entity and we can procure from them.
So I mean,
And so,
just to bring a little bit of clarity there, right? So this with this new procurement legislation, it also affects what contractors can be hired, and you know, I wanted to explain also the fact that I mean about what needs to happen for contractors, whether they be in Tobago, whether they be in Trinidad, to be considered whenever the division or any part of the government has a project to be undertaken.
no doubt, um, every every company that wants to contract with state agencies, by law, must be registered with the Office of the Procurement Regulator.
And not just with the THE.
No, we've been asking for our depository from PCO to be subsumed into the OPR, and they have refused. And I think they are not going to approve that. So those who are registered with the PCO in Tobago, that registration is going to be nullified by this new legislation. So every entity that wants to contract with the THA will have to now register with the OPR. Every entity, every agent of the state that wants to procure something has to be able to go onto the OPR website and to be able to see who are the vendors who have registered in what area. We have a major problem. And so do we allow the government to shut down? Because I don't think the legislation is meant to do that. There must be some time to allow even the procuring agents of the state to get their houses in order. There must be some time, and the system of procuring must go on. Because today, we couldn't buy toilet paper because no supermarket has been registered. If we had to go according to the letter of the law, we couldn't buy paper or ink. That's the reality. And so there must be some way that allows the functions of the state to continue.
And of course, if you don't go by those that are under the OPR, then the agency, the government agency, can face what are the consequences?
Well, of course, there's risk of litigation and all of that. But I'm saying it could not be that the law was intended to stop all procurement until everybody. What happens if no company in Tobago registered? What happens if no company, if only 10 companies in Trinidad registered? Then what would happen? And so there are issues under the legislation that need to be sorted out, that should have been sorted out beforehand, before it was assented to fully, that is going to challenge the ability of agents to procure. No doubt, individually now, I don't believe that was the intent. I have put forward in meetings at the executive level and so on that there is a need to correspond with the OPR and to plan a 6-month strategy of full compliance and still procure along that continuum to ensure that the government doesn't shut down. There are those who have a different logic to it and a different understanding, and so further meetings of the minds will have to happen so that we can ensure that we can deliver the services to the people of Tobago, even despite this new regulation.
Do you think that the procurement legislation prejudices Tobago contractors and suppliers?
Well, I don't know if it's prejudices. It's open season. Tobagonians have to stand up, and they have to find a way to register, and they have to become competitive. They have to be selective in what areas they register in, and we have. I was surprised that there are close to 1,000 companies registered with the PCO. I mean, in a little island, everybody is a contractor, everybody has a company and looking to contract. And I think this will weed out some of those, but we hope that people who are willing to continue providing service to the THA will take the time, and I'm encouraging people to take the time to go on the OPR website and to make sure that you are registered, because the time is coming when if you are not registered, you will not be able to contract with the THA.
All right, we're going to have to pause there and take another quick break. And when we return, we will continue our conversations with Mr. James.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawn. Good morning, Tobago.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations with the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Mr. Trevor James, in regards to, some of the things coming out of the budget and relating to the next year and how we're going forward in the next fiscal year. Now, one of the things Mr. James mentioned in the budget is that we need to treat with some of the coastal erosion that's happening around Tobago. Of course, we can't stop the coastal erosion, stop the things that are causing the coastal erosion, but there are things that we can do to mitigate it. A few years ago, the THA under the previous administration, told Tobago that they acquired a US $15 million loan from CAF to treat with some of those issues. But Mr. James said in the budget on Thursday that the THA has yet to receive that money.
Yeah, I continue to marvel at how the government in Trinidad is treating Tobagonians and still coming for their vote in a few years. We came into office. This negotiation with the Ministry of Finance and CAF was well advanced. I'm not certain if the ministry has received the loan from CAF, but the negotiations were well advanced. We met with officials of CAF in Tobago. We've had a team from the division, the coastal unit, along with Dr. Thompson, who's been trying to negotiate this loan to provide the documentation that the Ministry of Finance felt was necessary for us to end up getting this money. And the Ministry of Finance refused to respond to us.
So where is that money now? Do you have any indication where that money is?
Well, I don't know. I think we the last correspondence, which was last year, October, I think, the team wrote to the ministry asking for the ministry to provide a list of what documentation they need from us for us to follow the list, for us to be approved and make sure we supply everything they need for them to remit this money. And they have not responded. It's another example of probably the ministry saying, under direction from some politician, of course, and we're not going to give them this money. It's the same thing with that $41 million that was approved for the urban development in Scarborough during the election campaign, which we still can't get. No matter how we try with the Ministry of Planning. I personally took the proposal down. Dr. Boris handed another proposal to the minister directly. I spoke to the minister, the chief secretary spoke to the minister, and this is almost a year, and they still don't want to give the THA part of the loan that is from the IDB in this case, for Trinidad and Tobago. And these are the issues that we in Tobago need to appreciate and understand, that we are part of this union, but we don't benefit in the way that one island benefits from being part of the union. We are second class, and they continue to treat us as though we are some colonial outpost that they can control. It is similar to the European Union giving Tobago this money to build that North Side Link Road, and the then government in Trinidad deciding that road wasn't necessary and took it and spent it in Trinidad under another PNM administration. That's their modus operandi, and we need to bring all this autonomy thing to a head, because certainly we just can't continue like that.
So then how are we going to go forward in treating with those coastal areas that are of serious concerns?
We have discussed the possibility of appealing to grants from the European Union, as does Barbados and Grenada and St. Vincent, all independent states will do and have done. I've been in companies that execute projects in Barbados based on grant funding from the European Union, coastal protection projects. And so Tobago has to find a way to present itself to these agencies in order to see whether we can benefit from the grant funding for these kinds of projects. There's clearly monies out there for that. Do we have a major challenge in Tobago? Absolutely. If we don't reclaim lands in Scarborough, despite all the old talk, Scarborough will go underwater soon. If we don't put up sea defenses in Kendall, that whole flat area in between Kendall and Argyle and Roxborough will be subsumed by water shortly. The people on the side here are suffering because there's no protection there yet. We are not designing a project for that. The Fort James in Plymouth is breaking and will fall into the sea.
Yes.
Black Bay, on the other side of Fort James is almost overrun already. The whole road has been eroded. Um, um, Grange Bay, the whole wall is sinking away. And certainly the THE just does not have the monies to do it.
Now,
And we keep going to Trinidad for increased budgetary allocation, and they keep giving us $4 on the 100 every time we go. We need a fair share system, minimum, between Tobago and Trinidad. A significant part of the energy revenue, in fact, is attributed to Tobago and Tobago exclusive economic zone. And we are not benefiting from it. And Trinidad, on the other side, is building out massive infrastructure with our money.
now I'm taking special note right now of what's happening in Trinidad at this point in time, and that's the 50th anniversary of CARICOM.
Yes.
And a couple nights ago, we had the UN Secretary General stating that, he is pushing for the Caribbean, the islands in the Caribbean, to be able to access that funding that they need for climate change mitigation and that sort of thing. Because, let's be real, as small island developing states, it's difficult to come up with that money that's needed for the coastal protection, as well as treat with all the other things that need to be treated with. Is Tobago at that table for discussions? Is Tobago represented at the table for discussions so that we can access some of that money that may be going to other Caribbean islands for similar projects?
Well, the Chief Secretary should be presenting at the session tomorrow, and I'm sure autonomy issues will be part of his speech, and so we have an opportunity there to put the Tobago case before a wider group, and hopefully from there we will continue to build on that. Today, though, we are constrained by the way the legislation is written, and we have not been able over the years to access grant funding from the UN and so on, from the European Union, and so we hope that will change. It takes, I suppose, some changing of some legislation internally in Trinidad and Tobago, and whether the 39-2 Parliament will see it fit to do that. But certainly we've been struggling for years in Tobago with this Parliament that is skewed against us, and we are depending on Trinidadians essentially to determine our fate for us. We have to find a way to change that. We have to find a way to be the masters of our destiny and not dependent on somebody who's voted into office in Trinidad to vote for us to get to some 2/3 majority in a house that we have 2 votes in.
All right, well, Mr. James, with just a minute left, I just want you to spend a little time, a minute worth of time, speaking about just what Tobago can expect in the coming year.
Well, what we can expect for sure is good governance from our administration. We hope to roll out Scarborough. We are going to find a way to overcome the stumbling blocks that will be put in our way. We can expect better performance as all the team members have now gotten their feet wet, understand this whole system of governance. And so we hope to roll out a whole autonomy strategies in the full glare of the public. And so I believe together, if we can pull a major part of the country in Tobago together, moving in one direction, certainly in autonomy, I think we will finally see some success. But from a governance level, I think people should expect much improved performance.
All right, great. And that's a wonderful way to wrap up this morning's show. I want to thank you, viewers. Well, thank you, Mr. James, first of all, for joining me. And thank you, viewers, for sticking with us as we bring to you these wonderful conversations every day. So have a safe and wonderful day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.